All right, well, welcome to the Sports Guys. Another episode. Really glad you're here with us this evening. We just came off an incredible finish in the Masters tournament. It was just unbelievable to see Rory McIlroy finally get his first. He had been trying for so many years. He actually completes the career Grand Slam, and just so happy for him. I've never seen so much emotion in a golfer in my entire life. It was really kind of cool to see. What did you think of that, Robbie?
That was one of the best endings I've seen. I know playoffs happen, but it was just wild. It slipped away from him on 18, and then that was cool. And then his reaction was priceless.
What's wild is it slipped away from him about 4 times all day. That wasn't the first time. Early in the tournament or early in the round, he actually double bogeyed the first hole. So he just had so many up and down moments all day, and for him to actually pull it out, hit that incredible second shot, and then knock it in, it was really cool to see. I was happy.
Yeah, that was good.
I was really happy for him. So tonight, Robbie, we're here to talk about analytics in sports. This is a topic that you and I have beat up many, many times in our drives to work every morning. So this seems like kind of the ultimate article to talk about. This is an article Dad sent to us in the Washington Post that actually asks the question about whether analytics improves sports or doesn't improve sports, or is it somewhere in the middle? And essentially, yes, it has given teams an edge. It's given athletes an edge. There's no question about that. The teams that do it typically excel, and the teams that don't do it well don't do well. But the question is it making our sports unwatchable? So what are your thoughts?
I think it's going to be a really cool debate over the next 10 years. I think people are seeing how much analytics can help. I was talking to a friend today from Denmark, talking about how international soccer, the last time the U.S. had a World Cup here, um, immediately Europeans started using analytics, copying the American game. They had never really used it much in soccer or football in their case. And so just to see the pervasive nature of the analytics being used across so many different sports and for different reasons. And I think people are realizing now that there's limits to it. It's not only a tool that can take you upward in areas, but there's also times where human error and decision making can be superior than just numbers, etc. So I think it's all about how do you use the data and how do you use the information to make decisions. Are you cold heartlessly like Moneyball just cutting big time players? What is that going to do to selling tickets? There are ripple effects that are not just about numbers of RBIs and all that stuff. It's the overall impact of your team. If you're the Cowboys, are you signing Micah Parsons? What is the cost of not signing him? And
Mm-hmm.
what is the cost of signing him? What is his production? You're looking at all these numbers and all these analytics and dollar values and valuations. That's not taking into account what is he like in your locker room. Is he one of your leaders? Analytics can't take you all the way toward improving everything, but it can certainly be an important tool
Mm-hmm.
to put value on things.
I agree. I think analytics are here to stay, number one. Number two, the teams that do it well have an edge, and the teams that don't, not really able to compete. Bottom line is, though, that there are some warpings and perversion of sports that's happening here. You have, in basketball, especially in the NBA, way too many threes being shot, and it's becoming almost unwatchable. If you really like basketball, if you like to see plays being run, you like to see X's and O's, it just doesn't exist. There's no defense. Everyone just jacks up threes every possession, and it's almost unwatchable. And the NBA knows there's a problem. The reason they're doing that is when you go calculate and you put it into a computer, there is a huge advantage to shooting a three versus a long two. There just is. Even if you shoot a slightly poorer percentage, that extra point is huge over the course of a game. So there's a reason they do it. In the case of baseball, where you have the shifts and people will shift to one side or the other because somebody's predominantly hitting one direction or the other, they finally had to ban that this year, and now you have to have at least two infielders on each side of the second base bag. And so you're seeing sports having to now adjust to what analytics is forcing them to do. I'm thinking eventually the NFL might have to go to a cap on how many fourth downs you can go for. Maybe you can only go for like 5 in a game or something, because again, some of the perversions you're seeing with analytics. Even the tush push is potentially going to be banned this off season. So, what are your thoughts about some of the versions of analytics that we're seeing that's making some of the sports unwatchable?
Yeah, I think it takes kind of the soul out of the sport a little bit. Always going for it on fourth, and it feels like the football we grew up with. Field position was a big deal, and when you go for it on fourth every time, it's not as big a deal. You get that extra down, but also you're willing to slit your own throat on your own 10-yard line,
Mhm.
going away. You're going to hand the other team a touchdown. So because some book told you to do it, I don't know. There's definitely an element of um, that takes some of the skill of coaching out,
Mhm.
which I don't like that too much.
Me too. No, I think
Also,
it does not.
it doesn't take into account the ebb and flow of the game and the real thing called momentum. There's a real thing called momentum.
And did you
And
notice situational coaching is gone way down in every sport because coaches are not having to deal with situations as much. They're looking at their computer and saying, okay, it tells me I'm supposed to go for 4th and 1 here, so I'm going to do it. And they're not thinking about the situation as much. They're not looking at the fact that they're midway through the fourth quarter, they have a 2 touchdown lead. They're inside their own half of the field, like there's all these other situations they should be thinking about. And it's concerning to think about our situational coaching is becoming less and less in all sports.
yeah, that's right.
So I think that's a huge deal that is happening. I will say though that sports do change over time naturally. And so like in American football, you're seeing over the last 15 years a tremendous leaning towards passing almost every down, maybe a little bit of running here and there. The reason they were doing that is they were running it through computer simulations, finding out that the pass play is much more efficient than the run play when you just take a computer simulation into effect. But then what's happened in the last 2 seasons, of course, we've seen a real resurgence of the running games because the best teams that get the deepest in the playoffs have a running game and are able to run block and have big time backs. And so you're seeing it swing back a little bit. And you're also seeing defenses learn to defend the pass a little bit better. So you're seeing a natural swinging back and forth of the sports anyway. But my thought is the leagues are going to have to make some rules adjustments to try to bring back some of the spontaneity of the game and some of the beauty of the game that analytics is eliminating. What they were doing is running computer simulations, and the computer simulations were showing that a pass play is 30% more efficient than a running play on average.
That's
And
right.
so they were forcing their teams to pass, pass, pass. What's happening the last 2 seasons is it's swinging back a little bit in momentum because what they're seeing is the teams that can still run the ball and can still run block and still have a big back like Derrick Henry are getting deeper in the playoffs. And so now it's swinging back a little bit, even though analytics is saying pass, pass, pass.
It's a perfect example of where analytics can take it too far. Um, Back in the day, you had um, Vince Lombardi said 3 things happen when you throw the ball, and 2 of them are bad. That's
Mm-hmm.
why he loved to smash the ball on the ground. And basically, he was saying you can have an interception or an incompletion
Mm-hmm.
or a completion. So he was not a proponent of throwing it often because it raised the risk. And some of the analytics um, may not take that quite into account. So
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty interesting to watch how the pendulum swinging back is really a reality of coaches getting burned
Mm-hmm.
and everyone's second guessing the analytics. So
That's part of it. And then also, of course, we don't have as great quarterback play across every single team. You've got, 10
it,
premier quarterbacks and you've got a bunch of average ones. And so,
it's not even that you have average ones. You don't have as many veterans. So like everyone's going with first and second year quarterbacks and they're going to make a
mm-hmm.
lot of mistakes. So you want to throw the ball less and you want to run the ball more to keep it safe.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they are going to throw the ball, you want 3 yards or less, little screens and little slants, safe stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want big 7-step drop going long when you have Jaden Daniels back there a
Mm-hmm.
lot. Let him
Right.
run. So yeah.
What are some other rule changes you can think of? I mean, we just mentioned the shift is being taken away in baseball. They're considering doing a cap on how many 3-pointers you can shoot in an NBA game. Maybe like 25 3-pointers is your max. So then teams will probably load up on trying to save most of them for the second half. You might cap the number of fourth downs you can go for in an NFL game to 5 or something. What are some of the adjustments you can think of that might, try to get some of the semblance of the old school back in the game?
I think we're only a matter of time, not long from figuring out that injuries are going to go up with tush push. So I think that the data is going to suggest that that needs to probably be banned, because you have offensive players able to push the offensive player with the ball, and defenders not allowed to do the same thing. So the defenders are sitting ducks, and I don't think that's fair to them. So I think analytics can tell you quite a lot of good stuff about high performance and what needs to be done in situations where you're not sure whether to bring in the left-hander, whether to pitch one guy for 1 out and then bring the next guy in, and because that's what your analytics are telling you. Sometimes the pitcher feels like he's got the feel, like leave him in there. Let's go against the analytics right now. So I guess deciding when to use it and when to go against it.
Yeah, like analytics are saying to all starters should only do 5 innings and get out. And that's the exact kind of thing. I agree with you that the manager should be sitting there going, you know what, this guy is rolling tonight. He's got 14 strikeouts.
He's had time off. He's healthy.
He looks great. Let's let him go a couple more innings. It's a gut thing.
Yeah.
And what we don't want in sports is for the gut thing to go away. We want the gut to be able to stay there.
That's right.
Yeah. If the 4th and 1, he feels like you're rolling, you're down inside the 20 and you've got a touchdown lead and you're offensive line's whipping them, you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
if your defense is getting gashed,
right,
you can't put them in that position. You have to kick the field goal. You have to,
Some of the things analytics has done well, I think, is it has improved performance. It has helped individual players have tailored training plans for themselves. It's helped overall teams understand lineups that are maximum against a different opponent. There's a lot of things that I think analytics has done well to make sports better. So I don't want us to present that all, analytics are bad kind of thing, but I just think that in the situations in some sports where it's perverted things, I think those need to be looked at, and maybe some rules changes need to be made to bring back some of the spontaneity of the game.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Agreed.
Well, let's go take a look at some of the material we've got for tonight. Hey, everybody. Welcome for the Sports Guyz. We're here at Jersey Mike's, one of our favorite sponsors. Tomorrow night, we got a great episode coming your way. Look for it, but definitely recommend you go to your local Jersey Mike's shop.
Pretty excited to have lunch here today. Masters is going. We got a lot of good sports to talk about. We're pretty fired up.
Yep. So
let's go have this monster steak Philly.
Let's go do it. See you guys next time.
See you.
So this is our analytics in sports. Has it made the games better or worse? Episode 58. You see some great logos here on the screen. Sports analytics logos, ESPN analytics. You got the great movie MoneyBall with Jonah Hill and Brad Pitt and Philip Seymour Hoffman. We'll talk some more about that movie here in a little bit. You have the new Center for Analytics at University of Pennsylvania. So schools are not just offering analytics now as a course or as a major, but they're actually setting up centers for analytics at their schools. You have even one down in the middle there, the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference they have every year now for sports analytics people to come in from all over the country. So what's your overall thought about this movement and how it's kind of feels like it's a train that's left the station? It's not like it's going back into the box.
I think it's very exciting because you have so many brilliant minds working on it. There's so many tools available that you never would have thought of. And also the geniuses in the coaching ranks and the general manager ranks of figuring out, going on and trading your veteran shortstop who's doing really well because you have a guy who's coming up who can be almost as productive for way less money. So you trade him and you get an amazing pitcher and your team just got better, right. analytics that can be used by these genius general managers and then coaches, pulling all the strings in the right order, using situational play, gut, feel, and analytics together. It's pretty good. It's cool.
And to me, you're going to have an analytic coordinator now, and you're going to have an analytics department.
Yeah.
They're hiring all these people to do it. And you're going to have numbers crunchers, and you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen. So the question there is, where does it benefit us from a sports enjoyment perspective, and then where does it actually perverting the game so that it's not as fun as it used to be? So that's what we got to figure out. And I think that, like you said, that's going to take pretty much the next 10 years as we understand AI in sports, what that's going to do to our games. So I completely agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a look at this article that Dad sent us that we're looking at tonight. It's an article by the Washington Post. It's called Analytics Transform Sports, but has it also made them less entertaining? And that's really what we want to look at tonight. The MoneyBall era changed how teams play, coach, and are built. But the quest for efficiency is increasingly being blamed for robbing sports of their beauty. So what is your overall feeling on this? Has it gone too far? Are we about right? Where do you think on this question?
I think it's gone a little too far. I think there's certain little areas that it needs to be pulled back a little bit, and some of the decision making put back in the hands of coaches and general managers. Trading somebody who's still got a lot of value just because you want to take a chance with a cheaper rookie is not always the way to go. Has no real way of gauging what you're doing to your locker room. I think there's a more sober look at analytics now, and going on for the first time. I think people are more willing to openly question, always going for it on fourth and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, the Detroit Lions, 2 playoffs in a row, have had situations where they probably
Yeah.
should just kick the field goal. It
Yeah.
was the right thing to do situationally. And what did they do? Dan Campbell, he ordered them to go on 4th down, and they didn't make it. So
Yeah.
then it's kind of like, you start to question, the debate continues. Analytics might have said that in most situations, but in that situation, you're in the NFC Championship game. You got to be kidding me. You
Yeah.
take the points. So that's what I'm concerned about, is that we're starting to learn that ability to not function within a gut feel type situation. I don't want us to get to that in sports. So in terms of at the end of January 23, there was a news conference in Paris where the NBA's global ambitions failed to shield Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, from the state of the league's product. And it was something that he had to acknowledge, which is that the NBA's analytics movement had pushed the game to a very problematic place. And that problematic place is 23 feet 9 inches away, which is the 3-point line. And essentially, the analytics movement had helped revolutionize sports in the Moneyball era, but it had now in basketball, in some ways, made it unwatchable. So what are your thoughts about the NBA? What can they do to try to solve this problem?
Well, there are a lot of good ideas in terms of everything from like baseball. Every court can choose the 3-point line, distance, shape, things like that. Just like outfields in baseball can be different lengths and all that. You could do different point values. You can do certain times of the game. They're not 3-pointers. There's a lot of things they could do that I've heard that are pretty interesting. But trying new things is a good idea.
I think they should cap the number of 3-pointers. That'd be a good way to do it, and make them kind of budget how many threes they take. So essentially,
You're only allowed a certain number. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like 25 a game or something. And then what they would end up doing probably is take only 10 in the first half and leave the other 15 for the second half to see if they have a lead. That way you'd force them to, in a lot of cases, go for inside twos, which are the easiest basket. I think that might really help. Of course, it will bring some of the scoring down, but I think it'll make the product a lot better. That's my personal opinion. So that's what I think I would do if I was Adam Silver, is cap the number of threes. There's other ideas out there. They're thinking about adding a 4-point line, which I think is just crazy. Another thing would be to maybe make the 3-point line a little further out, maybe make it like 25 feet or something, so it's a little harder to hit. So teams really think about, do we really want to take this many threes? So those are some of the ideas that they've had about potentially doing. They've also thought about maybe if you get fouled on a three-pointer, only getting 2 free throws. So there's just different ways they're looking at potentially capping this situation. So when it comes to the NBA's glut of three-pointers, Silver said, it's absolutely analytics have taken teams in a certain direction. Coaches and general managers get paid to win at all costs, he said, and are not necessarily focused on the aesthetic appeal of the game. And he said, I'm listening to all the critics. I don't want to overreact, but I think there's potentially some adjustments that we can make in the NBA. So you can see this is an issue for a couple of years now that they've been thinking about. What can we do to make the game more aesthetically pleasing, to let the basketball purists see actual plays being run, that kind of thing, like in Jordan's day. Any other thoughts on that?
I do think Silver hears the complicated nature of the problems that are kind of there. I think 4-point play would be in the opposite direction of what needs to happen. But I do think the NBA there's kind of a over dramatization of the NBA's rating problems. I think they're not doing a great job of marketing their stars right now, but
That's
I
part
think
of it.
they'll be fine. They just need to keep tweaking a little bit. I do think there are too many threes.
I think there's too many games too. They
Too
have a
many
problem.
games, too many
They have a
threes.
problem that hockey has the same problem. Baseball has the same problem. They have not figured out how to match NFL and college football in that their regular season games, they really are meaningless and nobody can watch them. They're almost unwatchable. And people only want to watch when it gets to the playoffs. And it's
Yeah.
just a huge problem. Gets to the playoffs and it's great basketball. Everybody wants to watch it. And it's really good teams, right? But
Yeah. Well, they play defense,
and they play defense, and you have the best teams, you have the best stars, and so I think this problem does need to be solved. But I think their problems are much bigger than the 3-point line. I think that they have to figure out a way to make the regular season actually make sense and actually count for something. So that's just what I believe. In terms of baseball, some of the changes you're seeing on the field are being driven by smart team personnel who want to win more baseball games, said Manfred. And of course, Manfred is the baseball commissioner. And he was addressing the criticism of baseball's on-field product. And he said, what point do we step in and manage that organic change? And so this is something baseball very much is talking about every single offseason. And they, like I said before, they just executed the change of the rule. You now cannot shift. And so you have to have at least 2 infielders on either side of the second base bag. So that's a big deal. Now you have situations where hitting averages are going back up again. For a while there, they were dipping down to, I think the average across baseball was 220, which is a pretty bad average. And it was largely because the shift was taking away a lot of those hits.
Yeah.
So any other thoughts about what baseball can be doing? They've tried to speed up the game. They're
I
actually
think speeding up the game has been great.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. And they put a guy on second base in the extra innings to try to end the game faster. The game is 20 minutes shorter than it used to be, which is kind of nice. There's more stolen bases, I noticed. They've tweaked the ability for the pitcher to go to first base. I think you can only go to first base twice within a particular batter's at bat. So they're doing some good things in baseball to make it a little more exciting. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So what's the definition of sports analytics? It's using data to gain insights and improve performance is a key aspect of modern sports, with graphics playing a crucial role in visualizing and interpreting data. Here's a look at how analytics graphics are used in major sports. Sports analytics involves collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data to gain insights into athletic performance, team strategies, and player dynamics. With advancements in technology and AI growing in the popularity of sports, analytics has emerged as a game changer in the sports industry. It gives teams valuable information to make data-driven decisions. Thoughts on the definition of analytics?
I think it's a very interesting concept, full of all these different ideas that came together because sports became so big. Um, I think you got a bunch of geniuses now working on this, and there's a lot of track record of success, at least a decade of incredible examples. They're making movies about it. And so
Mhm.
it's pretty cool to watch them test the limits of analytics. I know we do hit the limits sometimes, but we're on our way to seeing how much further they can take it.
I saw an article that was saying that analytics has been a big part of, especially baseball, for decades. You used to have people sitting in the stands in the 70s and 80s, and they had a little newspaper, and they would be actually keeping score for every single at bat, and every hit, and every home run, and every RBI. And so it was a big part of the baseball fans' experience was keeping the data of the actual game itself. So analytics, it's not exactly just a new thing. It's just become very proliferated in all the decision making in every sport. So, but in baseball, it's really been a data-driven sport from the very beginning. So, how do sports analytics help us, or how do they help athletic departments? Here's some of the ways: player and game performance. You've got game analysis, strategy and tactics, scouting, training performance, business-oriented applications that helps you with finance and marketing and sales and customer relationship management. And then with player health and injury analytics, you have workload management, you've got injury prevention, recovery management. You have all these different aspects of helping actual players stay on the field. So, any thoughts about some of these categories?
Again, just it gets very complicated very fast, and you have so many working elements to it. It's kind of amazing how they can gather all the data and make it into useful decision making.
I mean, game analysis has gotten better, film analysis has gotten better,
Absolutely.
scouting, they understand every player inside and out. I know workload management has become a big topic in the NBA, especially because you've got older players like LeBron James who play, maybe two-thirds of the games at the most and are essentially saved for the playoffs. And you have a lot of that going on in the NBA. And so fans get kind of upset because they pay a lot of money for a ticket and go, and half the time the stars are not playing because of workload management. So, but again, there's so many games that the only way you're going to get a 40-year-old through the season is to do this. So
Yeah.
again, has it taken some of the fun out of the game? Even though, yes, it has made it much more data driven, which in some ways is good, but has it taken some of the spontaneity out?
Yeah, it has. I saw Magic Johnson interviewed, and he talked about how he was watching games recently. I think he said with Michael Jordan or some, and he said that he just couldn't believe switching around the league all the stars that were on the bench in street clothes,
Hmm.
and he
It's
just said
usually half or
this
more.
is so bad for the
Like
sport.
it is, yeah. It's
If you have
usually
too
like
many games, have fewer games.
right. You
Load
have some
management should
nights.
be if you're kind of nursing an injury or something.
You have a lot of nights where a team might be playing a scrub team on the other side, and they don't play like their top three players, and you're like, "What is going on?" Like if I'm the home team and I'm not playing my top three players, and I'm a fan, I'm pretty upset. So I understand why they're doing it. The data is telling them to only play LeBron 55 games, but obviously the paying fan is not too happy about it. So some of the other things to look at here, you've got performance optimization, injury prevention, training excellence, strategic decision making. Fan engagement has really helped because fans are getting more and more into the data themselves. Then obviously the talent scouting has become a much bigger portion of what teams are doing. You can see an example of what a tight end's stat sheet looks like for Bowling Green University. It's pretty incredible to see how these players are analyzed in every sport now. We're talking their speed, their vertical jump, their how much they bench press, how much they sleep, what they eat, a summary of their personality. I mean, it's incredible how these athletes are analyzed these days. Any thoughts?
It's really cool to watch how it impacts different sports. I've enjoyed watching the soccer element of it. That injury prevention's huge. There's all kinds of metrics for testing people for concussions. Um, I like the performance optimization, getting people a certain amount of rest, numbers of pitches. There's so many different pieces that can affect all these different sports. It's very
Yeah,
cool how they can kind of watch it get implemented.
everybody's on a pitch count. Everybody's on a minutes count. How many minutes you're playing? How many snaps you're playing? But I look at this scouting sheet for this Harold Fannin Jr. and I think to myself, this used to just be around like the NFL draft that they had this kind of breakdown, but now they have it for the everyday player so that every coach understands exactly everything about their player, physically, mentally, and everything else, what their edge is. So it's just gone to a completely different level, the way sports is analyzed. Pretty interesting.
Very.
So, in terms of another part of the adoption of analytics for athletes themselves, you can see here in all these different sports, basketball, track and field, table tennis, volleyball, football, that in every sport, they're now looking at not just the athlete and how they perform, but they're looking at every portion and body part of the athlete, the neck, the trunk, the upper limbs, the lower limbs, the shoulder, and all these different aspects of each individual. So they really understand where their strengths and weaknesses are. So this comes down to what you were talking about when you're talking about right-handed pitchers against right-handed hitters,
Mm-hmm.
and you're talking about a right-handed player in the
Like
NBA shoots right-handed against a left-handed defender, and there's just so many different
like martial
aspects.
artists using it to figure out which
Yeah.
hand to strike with.
Fencers in the Olympics
Yeah.
trying to decide how they're going to do it. Swimmers, how they're going to drag each other. It's amazing. It really is. And like I said, this is just starting, really, if you think about it. The analytics industry is actually pretty new. So you can just imagine where this is going to be in like 20 years. They're going to know every single thing about every single athlete. So whether it's taking the fun out of it or not, I mean, that's up to the fans to decide. But really, this is just started in terms of the analytics industry. So looking at analytics, AI, and software, you can see what the development has been here in terms of the growth in the global market, 31% up, and up on average 27% over the last 5 years in terms of software. You can see AI in the sports market and how it's growing. And right now, you can see it's gone all the way up to over 5 million people in terms of using AI in sports markets. And you can see it's just going to continue to grow and grow and grow all the way through the 2030s. So again, this is here to stay. This is going to continue to happen, and teams are going to try to find an edge at all costs. And so the leagues are going to have to decide how to monitor it and really legislate against it to see if there's things that need to be tweaked or managed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the leagues are going to have to take a hard look. Are there any unfair advantages happening? Is everybody's best interest at heart? And is this best for the product that they're putting out on the floor every night, or the court, or what have you? There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
factors here. I'm not sure load management is what's best for the league,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Although
but
having
but
LeBron
having your
James,
stars in the playoffs is crucial. So I don't know. Maybe it is.
right? Yeah, you just have to realize that what they're saying by doing load management is that our regular season is just okay, but it's not that important. That's what they're saying, essentially. You had a couple years ago when the Lakers won in the bubble, which was the COVID-induced bubble that the Lakers won in. They went into that tournament as the last seed in the West, and they did because they had a bunch of old players that they had held out most of the regular season, but ended up making a huge run in the playoffs. So I don't know. We'll have to see how the fans react to all these different tweaks. So Moneyball Effect. The Moneyball was this great movie. It came out in 2011 based on a book that came out in 2003. And it was a true story about the 2002 season of the Oakland A's. The Oakland A's had followed, watching and studying the Yankees winning 2001 season where they won the World Series with Derek Jeter And you can see a really great cast in this movie about the A's with Brad Pitt as the lead, with Jonah Hill and Philip Seymour Hoffman, and a bunch of other really great actors. And if you haven't seen this movie, it's really fantastic. And what they see in terms of data analytics and data driven decision making is they see a spike after this movie came out. Essentially, people were doing it before 2011, but when this movie came out, it became a huge hit. And everybody in every sport wanted to find a way to become like Moneyball and be able to give their team an edge. In this movie, the A's are the lowest payroll in all of baseball and find a way to analyze the Yankees and simulate a lot of their tactics with a lesser um, staff. And they actually get into the playoffs in the 2002 season with the lowest payroll. So that's what ends up happening in the movie.
It was a great movie.
What are your
Classic.
thoughts about the movie and about kind of the impact it had on analytics? Because we see a huge spike after that.
It was a really interesting first view, really, of what it was like to be Billy Beane, to be getting rid of players that were popular in the dugout, still had lots of value. He looked like a maniac, just trusting numbers like that, and it was really an innovative presentation of where sports were heading over the next 15 years, and we're kind of there now, where it's all been perfected. But
Mm-hmm.
this movie came out and really changed the way people understood how these general managers were making decisions, and it was changing on the fly how they were actually doing it.
And you have so many teams that are not the New York Yankees that saw this movie and thought to themselves, we could be the next Oakland
We can
A's.
do that. Yeah.
We have a small payroll, but we have smart people on our staff. We can look at data, we can analyze it, we can figure out the best lineups every day.
We've got good guys in our farm system that can be cheaper than these crazy expensive veterans who, are hurt a lot of the time. And
It's funny, the just like the poker boom and the poker craze really spiked after the Rounders movie, which was a really famous poker movie. When Rounders came out, everybody wanted to learn how to play poker. Everyone wanted to play in the World Series of Poker. And that movie had that tremendous impact with Matt Damon. And this movie was very similar in the sports analytics business. There was a huge spike in interest after this. Any other thoughts about the Moneyball effect?
no, it was a very pivotal movie, I think, because a lot of people felt like they had to catch up, I think, on some of these older sports teams that were running old school. And
Right.
I think it made people feel like we're doing that or we're not doing it yet, and we need to learn how.
You know what was really fun was to watch the interplay between Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. I thought that was really funny to watch in that movie. It was enjoyable. I recommend anybody who hadn't seen this film, you should definitely take a look at it, especially if you're a sports fan, to understand the impact it had on analytics in general.
Yeah.
So, in terms of sports analytics before the Moneyball effect, let's take a look at that. So, the sports analytics community emerged from three distinct sub communities back before Moneyball. One was operations researchers, second was freelance sports journalists, and third was internet hobbyists. So, some of the operations research or OR originated people happened during World War II as a new science of warfare, in which statisticians analyzed the military's operational data and suggested tactical adjustments in relation to that data. For example, by accounting for the weather or time of day, or operation researchers could then help air forces optimize the legal efficiency of aerial bombing runs. So, as a diversion from their military work at that time, post war, some of those OR practitioners started to apply their analytical tools and models to sports and found huge success. So it was kind of a niche thing back then, but you can see some of these same OR ideas coming out of the military started to pervade into sports franchises. Any thoughts about that?
I mean, it's fascinating and it's not surprising that statisticians crossed over from military into the sports world. That's very logical, I think.
You can see Bill James right there in the picture, was one of the brilliant people. He created a system called Saber, which is an analytics AI model for baseball that is used by every single team now, and analyzes every stat in baseball against each other, and essentially gives teams an edge when it comes to putting lineups together. So really interesting that sports analytics actually dates back to just after World War II. It's been around a long time. So let's look at analytics in football. So it's transformed American football by providing teams with new ways to evaluate players, make in-game decisions, and prepare for opponents. And using data and technology has moved beyond traditional statistics to encompass player tracking, advanced metrics, machine learning, enabling teams to be more informed in terms of their decision making. So what is your overall thought about how analytics has transformed football?
I think generally speaking, it's been pretty good in football. The biggest argument I would say against going for it on fourth can be the biggest sticking point, but a lot of the way they make decisions with player personnel, production, getting rid of people, I don't think they make too many enormous mistakes.
I agree with that. I think
Um,
analytics on
and
balance.
what I would say is somebody like Deshaun Watson, when there is a mistake made, it really stands out. It really sticks out when a team makes an enormous blunder. For the most part, I think analytics has helped people evaluate whether a linebacker is worth 20 million a year,
Mm-hmm.
or is he worth 7? You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can put value on it. You can make it, and then he goes to this next team where he gets 20 and he's hurt in game 2,
Mm-hmm.
and you could have predicted something along those lines based on track record. And
I completely agree with you. I think analytics on balance has been a huge win for the NFL and for college football. I think
yeah,
that overall the performances have gotten better. The players have gotten bigger, stronger, faster. The game has gotten more and more popular. The game's getting better and better every year. So overall, it's been really good. The teams make better decisions. They match up lineups better than they used to. They are able to film study better. I think the one area, of course, is the 4th and 1s, and that's a huge area of debate for whether that's really something that's overdone in football. This is an interesting chart that's done by some to look at the mix of running plays, whether you run up the middle or whether you run outside. And a lot of teams are starting to run these analytical models to determine what percentage of run plays they should run in each area of the field. So that's really interesting that they're breaking it down that way. Are we going to run it left? Are we going to run it right? Are we going to run it inside, outside, inside the tackles, off tackle? So analytics has gotten to the point now where they'll put game plans together around a certain number of plays in each area of the field. It's really interesting. Trying to find different
I think
weaknesses.
to me, the bottom line is the game as exciting, more exciting, or less exciting than normal? And if so, are analytics playing a positive role in that or a negative role? I'd say if you go to baseball, it's more exciting because it's faster. Analytics is playing a role in that. They're doing the speeding of the pitch count. Of course, it slows down when you keep changing pitchers every time you're trying to get one out and all
Well,
that. So
they've gotten rid of the shifts, so there's more hits now.
more hits.
Yeah, they're
They
doing a lot of
juiced the
different.
ball for a while, which is cool. They're using the new bats, those
Mm-hmm.
special bats. And so if you go baseball, just as an example, analytics is probably improving the quality of the play.
Mm-hmm.
NBA probably is less exciting. There's less
Mm-hmm.
defense. There's more throwing up threes,
Mm-hmm.
and higher scores is not necessarily better basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Football, I think it's definitely improving it.
Mm-hmm.
I think overall analytics in football has been positive.
I think generally, although they got too pass happy the last 15 years, but the last 2 seasons they've started to balance it. It's now down to 55-45,
Yeah,
which is a pretty good mix. And I think the fact that running backs are back, I think that the leagues, both NFL and college, are just getting better and better. And the popularity in the game are getting better. But
yeah,
overall, I think it went a little too far in the pass direction. although I like passing. And the 4th and 1s, I still think it's too far. But I mean, that's what coaches say from their analytics teams they should be doing. Speaking of 4th and 1, this is the 4th and go measure. You can see what's happened over the years from 84 to 2024. So you're talking about a 40-year period. Back in the 1984 season, you had 422 going for 4th and 1s, and in 2024 you had 766. So it's almost doubled, and most of that due to analytics and what the analytic crunchers are telling the coaches to do. So this is the phenomenon we're talking about. So what are your thoughts about this? Is this sustainable? Does it need to be backed off a little bit? I'm not sure I see anybody going back from this. The coaches like going for 4th and 1. They think to themselves, if I can't get a 4th and 1, I don't deserve to win.
I think there's a way forward where you don't have to go back, but you can pull back slightly and maybe get more creative.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely where you are on the field and momentum should play a role.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you add a third or fourth component that helps you make your decision.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a field position guy. I think that should be something they bring back. Field position having a bigger role, because it's not fair to your defense.
I kind of like that they go for more 4th and 1s, but I think they've gone too far. I think the fact that you're up 78% in the last 13 years is just a little too much. I think that they should back off a little bit, especially in those really key decision points of the game. I think that there's so many risk takers now. You had some years back, you had Ron Rivera with the Panthers. They call him Riverboat Ron because he would go for fourths every time. And I'm sure his analytics team was telling him to do so. So I don't know. I think they need to back off a little bit on the 4th and 1s and be more aware of their situations in game. But are there situations you should go for it? Absolutely. If you're down inside the other team's 20-yard line and you have a lead, you should do it. More often than not, that calculation tells you to go.
Mm-hmm. I think they're getting better at it.
I think so. So some other analytics in football adjustments. You have player evaluations. Analytics now allow teams to assess player abilities in more nuanced ways than ever before, going beyond just simple yardage or tackle counts. They can look at defenders' ability to create tackling opportunities or quarterback's performance in specific situations, more situational type ball. They have in-game decision-making analytics now where the coach gets 2 or 3 different options in every situation, whether it's 4th down decisions, 2-point conversion attempts, even 3rd down situations. Game planning against opponents is much more helped by all the analytic different situations with formations and opponents' tendencies, things like that, play calling. The scouting and drafting organizations have been helped tremendously by analytics to be able to actually analyze every player at a much more detailed level. And then we've talked about even in the NBA, but also in the NFL, injury prevention and performance enhancement. So what are your thoughts about these 5 categories? Any ones that you think in particular analytics have really helped?
I really think player evaluation has been huge. There's so much pressure on contract work that one of the main ways they can tell value is evaluating production and availability. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of times you overpay a veteran and they're hurt the whole time. That quickly shows up in analytics.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, all of it. The scouting and drafting go along hand in hand with that. Injury prevention. They've actually done a lot of studies on this. This is actually kind of mixed data, because there's a lot of data they're finding in the NBA that not doing load management actually gets your muscles and ligaments stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up having fewer issues. The people who are load managing, when you go to use those muscles, you'll have more pulled Achilles and things like that, soft tissue injuries. So the data actually is not supporting a lot of this load management.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you have to take into account, is playing someone a half resting them, or is sitting them out the whole game, how you analyze it, or so
Mm-hmm.
it's not so cut and dry, but there is conflicting data on the injury prevention.
Right.
So,
Well,
but I
like,
think player evaluation, scouting, and drafting is the big
and I
ones.
think end game decision making is big too, because whether it's fourth down or whether it's a 2-point conversion, whether you should go for 2-point or not, teams, this sentence here is really interesting. Teams can use data to assess probability of success in different scenarios. I know coaches are looking at things like, if I go for 4th and 1 against Stanford off tackle, I have a 78% chance of being successful. Whereas the week after that, I play Penn State, my 4th and 1 over right tackle would be 41%. So I can make a decision that I'm going to go for it against Stanford, but I'm not against Penn State. Just the pure stats tell you not to do it. So, this is making it more of a science and less of a gut situation. People are going more by just pure numbers. So I don't know if that's a good situation or not, but this is what the reality is. What's happening. So some other things here. The Big Data Bowl now exists in the NFL. This is a Big Data Bowl competition that encourages application of advanced analytics to football data, fostering innovation and driving the use of data-driven insights within the league. So you now have the last 3 years and going into this year, the Big Data Bowl that gives an award to the franchise out of the 32 franchises that uses data analytics the best. So it's essentially giving an award to that data analytics team that really kicks butt on the field.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. And then you have this thing called Next Gen Stats.
I don't think the Lions won last year.
No, they did not. And you have this thing called Next Gen Stats. It's real big. It's a system that
Yeah.
tracks player movements and provides detailed data on player performance. So that's a real big deal.
I
For
love watching that when they can tell you how fast somebody was running, like
yeah,
miles per hour.
yep. And then training and conditioning is a huge area for analytics that's just being tested the last couple of years, where they're not just looking at players on the field anymore. They're now looking at the players in the weight room. They're looking at the players in the pool. They're looking at players in every aspect of their training. And so that's really interesting, looking at their conditioning, their heart rates, and all those kinds of things. So this is really high-tech stuff that they're getting into. My geeky side kind of likes it. I think it's pretty cool. But my other side is thinking to myself, is it getting too robotic? And is it taking the spontaneity out of the games? All right, let's look at baseball. You mentioned this earlier. We showed the picture of Bill James, who created the Saber system. He eventually became the most influential and prominent member of the Saber founding organization. In his freelance articles for Baseball Digest and Sporting News, James would use statistics to challenge received wisdoms and showed a knack for asking probing questions around baseball statistics. So you would ask things like, how did a pitcher's run support impact his won or loss record? How did hitters fare in a day versus night game? Between 77 and 88, James published a preseason subscription letter, Baseball Abstracts, and introduced several new advanced metrics throughout the process. And he had a formula for runs created, which is now used by all 32 teams, which is really interesting. And that essentially uses walks, extra base hits, stolen bases, while subtracting negative effect things like being caught stealing or striking out. So it's actually a sabermetrics calculation that he uses. So what are your thoughts about this whole push by Bill James and the Saber organization in baseball?
I mean, it's really cool. Very complicated, I think, but I think it's pretty interesting. Sabermetrics.
Yeah, it's
And
very cool.
I think baseball is one where it's just set up perfectly for data analysis.
And he was doing this before Moneyball. So you can imagine he was probably very happy Moneyball came out, because it kind of legitimized what he had been doing all those years to present these kind of stats in a very complicated way. And now every team uses it.
Yeah.
So he's really an innovator if you think about it. So this is pretty interesting here. Likewise, in the 1959 Operations Research article, the Royal Canadian Air Force, George Lindsay, showed through numbers that right-handed hitters had a better batting average against left-handed pitchers and vice versa because they could see the baseball better. And he actually looked at eye movements and eye angles and all kinds of really cool things. So in 1959, he came up with that theory. And of course, we all just accept that now that that's true. So you'll see, you mentioned guys coming in for one hitter or two hitters, and then they'll get changed out because they want a lefty to face a lefty or a righty to face a righty for that reason, because you can't see the ball as well. So any thoughts about this theory that this George Lindsay came up with that everybody uses today?
I mean, I have to admit, I think that there's definitely something to it in terms of who's supposed to face whom and why and when, and the numbers back it up. It hurts the game if you keep changing pitchers to face one batter, stuff like that. So there have to be some rules, but it's pretty cool to watch the
It hurts
chess
the game in
match.
some ways, but I think in the playoffs it doesn't because it's such a like chess match,
It's a
that
chess match,
it's
and
kind of cool to watch the managers go at each other. Um, but in the regular season, you're right. It just kind of slows things down. It bogs it
yeah,
down. You've got work the next day. Um, I don't know. They have the same problem that NBA basketball does, that hockey does. Their regular season's too long, too many games, doesn't mean as much. But in the playoffs, I think it's very cool to watch this process unfold. So more strikeouts, less action. For nearly a century and a half, MLB teams averaged more hits per game than strikeouts, but finally that changed in recent years, with teams continuing to prioritize strikeouts and limiting balls in play. And they've used analytics really successfully, especially the last 5 years, with pitchers to do a lot of film study, a lot of work on machines and other things to change eye angles and pitch angles. And now you can see what's happened is pitchers are becoming much more successful in striking out batters. They do not want balls in play like in the old days. So any thoughts about this?
just I don't know. It's the best sport for analytics, I think, and all the different categories lend themselves to tracking with data.
But I think this is a perfect example where it makes the game worse. I mean, you have so many strikeouts now that you
Yeah,
can't say that's better than the ball getting in play, which is what the pitchers don't want, but
right.
the fans do want that. So what the pitching team wants versus what the fan wants is really at odds with each other.
Sometimes it's at odds. You want to keep it low scoring, but you want offense. Like if you're Major League Baseball, having really good pitching is great baseball too, but it doesn't always fill the stands.
Hmm.
Although if you have great pitching, you might win the whole thing. So
Again, has it gone too far?
that's not too far.
Maybe
Good question.
having 5 or 6 strikeouts a game is fine, but when you get up now, they're getting 9, 10, 11, 15 strikeouts a game. I don't know. Has it made the game better? I guess that's up to the person that's watching the game. But in my opinion, you want the ball in play as much as possible. So, of course, I like offense. So,
Yeah.
in terms of some of the adjustments in baseball, you have the shift. We mentioned that it's now common that shifting fielders to one side or the other based on where the likely place that the hitter is going to hit it. They just got rid of that in the 2025 season. You now cannot shift, which is a direct tweak or change to the rules so that they can avoid some of this analytics defense that was happening. So that was really kind of one of the most major rules changes we've seen due to the adverse effects of analytics. Pitch management, teams use data to make more dynamic pitching decisions, including pitching rotations, bullpen usage, etc. You mentioned that earlier. And then lineup optimization, data is used to analyze matchups and player performance. And essentially, you're getting more and more specialists in baseball, where guys are playing about every third night because they have a certain specialty against a different team. You're not getting the regular everyday player anymore, pretty much. Any thoughts about these three?
Yeah, I think there's a pretty natural use of analytics with pitching. Um, it's such a violent at motion that for your shoulder that it's such a specialized play, pitching, that these guys are like ninjas, you know?
Hmm.
And so you're going to pour a lot of your resources into making sure your pitching is efficient and as powerful as possible, and you have all different types of ability to pitch in different situations. Go to
Hmm.
the lefty, bring in another starter, bullpen, closer.
Do you
There's
think that getting
so many decisions related to pitching that using it for analytics is a logical next step.
do you think getting rid of the shift? Do you think getting rid of the shift was a good idea?
Yes.
I do too. I do
Yeah.
too. I think it was getting ridiculous when you see three, even sometimes four guys over on one side.
Yeah.
It's just absurd.
Yeah. It was.
What about lineup optimization? It kind of saddens me to think about in today's game, you might not have had a Cal Ripken Jr. who played every day for 22 years. Now you've got so many specialists that these guys are largely not playing every day anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad. Like sometimes change is good. Not having an Iron Man guy, maybe a small price to pay for a higher level of execution as a team or something. Imagine all the times he had to play hurt. That wasn't totally necessary.
Right.
Um, you could just bring someone in to let him heal up
Analytics would have said for him not to play every day. You know
for
what I
him not
mean?
to play,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. Although I will say specialization in baseball is lagging behind a lot of the other sports. You definitely have specialization in football. That's where it started. The sack specialist, the guy who's good against the run but not against the pass, the running back who's only good in short yardage. So NFL and football specialty has been going on a long time. It feels like baseball's now catching up, and they're starting to have these kind of guys that are good against certain lineups, or we're going to start him because we have a sinker ball pitcher today, and he's good at ground balls, that kind of thing. So you're starting to see that specialization again come into this sport. Sabermetrics, we talked about a little bit earlier, which is that empirical analysis of baseball through statistics. And it's become an integral part of understanding, evaluating all players' performances. Advanced metrics like velocity, spin rate, and sprint speed are now considered alongside traditional stats like batting average and ERA. So you're starting to see some really interesting new metrics for each player come in. And then teams are increasingly using data to make predictions about player performance and forecast game outcomes. So what's interesting is a lot of the analytics teams in baseball will run simulations the night before a game and be able to simulate for you whether they think the team's going to win or lose based on what the lineups are going to be.
hmm.
So you have all these different computers now that are really powerful, and it's interesting. It lets managers decide what the lineup's going to look like the next day. I don't know if it's a good thing because it's taking a lot of the gut stuff out, but it certainly
would
gives out
Tom,
teams an
would
edge.
Kirk Gibson have hit that home run? He
No,
wouldn't have been in. He wouldn't have been in there.
that's
You
right.
know?
He would not. That's the thing. You're going to miss some of those moments, and it's kind
Yeah.
of sad to think about because it's going to be so computerized. But I don't know how you stop it.
You don't have to stop it. You just need to learn how to use it even better.
True,
You
true.
know.
Use it better and try to find ways to keep some of the spontaneity in the games. That's really what we're talking about here. Is how do you push back on some of those areas that are getting rid of the good part of the games? This is interesting. The three teams that use analytics the most successfully in baseball are the Houston Astros, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Tampa Bay Rays. And the Rays have that smaller budget type analytics program that has done very well for them. Any surprise that these teams have really embraced analytics and gotten really good at it?
No surprise. I mean, the Astros and Dodgers definitely no surprise for me. Um, they've had excellence for a long time, and they do a tremendous job of roster optimization, which means they believe in value, and every single person in their organization has value,
Mm-hmm.
from the secretaries to the ball boys to the everything. and
Mhm.
so they're always analyzing how they can get better.
And the
Analytics, like
Rays always small budget. They're a small budget, small market team, and they always have to find a way to be competitive. And the way they do that is through analyzing everything they do, so including scouting. So interesting that they become kind of like the Oakland A's in Moneyball. They're the modern Oakland A's. So really
yeah,
interesting to see that.
they kind of do remind me of the A's a little bit.
They do. They really do. Let's look at analytics in hockey. So it's transformed hockey by shifting the sport towards a more data-driven approach, impacting various aspects from player evaluation and scouting to game strategy and player development. You now have a more informed decision making by coaches and front offices system that's now influencing how the game is played and approached. Some of the metrics that they're looking at now, analytics have enabled use of advanced metrics to assess player performance beyond traditional statistics like Corsi and expected goals. The expected goal stat is one of the biggest ones in hockey now. They also can apparently identify lots of hidden talent coming out of small farm systems. So
Hmm.
that's really helped scouts a lot to be able to, stack rank hockey players that have potential. So, what are your thoughts about analytics in hockey? Does it surprise you that they've jumped on it as well?
I'm not surprised. I know that a lot of teams are starting to rotate goalies, things like that, trying to keep their goalies fresh and using different analytics for deciding when to change and
Mm-hmm.
how to use both goalies. There's
More and more situational lineups, more situational
Yeah,
lines.
situational lineups, when to push forward, and just kind of they use it in a lot of ways. How often to change,
Mm-hmm.
and how long can you leave your guys out there, stuff like that.
That's right. Exactly right.
I think it's improving hockey. I think
I
hockey is
re-
just getting better and better.
I 100% agree. I think analytics is great for hockey. So this is interesting. In-game adjustments. Coaches now utilize real-time data and video analysis to make in-game adjustments during the game for optimizing team performance. They also help coaches identify and exploit weaknesses in opponent strategies and lineups. And then data on player strengths and weaknesses allow for creation of tailored training programs to improve specific skills off the ice. So, any thoughts about these three?
I mean, this is like I said. I think this is working out really well for hockey.
Doesn't it feel more like the NFL? It's like they're
Yeah,
bringing
it
in a
feels
lot of
kind
the
of like the
NFL
NFL. They're
analysis,
not overusing it. It's the right amount.
right? And they're using a lot of the same techniques the NFL uses in lineups and player performance and player training. It's really interesting. There's also an emphasis on shot quality. So analytics have highlighted a lot of importance of getting high quality shots rather than lots of shots. So there's a shift in offense strategy. Instead of trying to create more scoring chances, trying to create chances closer to the net. That's really what it's all about. In terms of puck possession, data has shown the value of controlling the puck. So very similar to soccer, where possession is so important. That's true in hockey as well. So trying to find ways to maintain possession, especially in the offensive zone. And then analytics have indicated that pulling the goalie early in the game, even when down by multiple goals, can increase the chances of tying the game. I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts on shot quality, puck possession?
I do think they're getting more specialized on where to put the puck, on studying each goalie. There are definitely weaknesses on blocker side, or um, you know,
Mm-hmm. The shot quality one makes a lot of sense to me.
yeah,
Who cares if you're getting 40 shots if they're all like from the blue line? I'd rather get 20 shots from close in with rebounds, right? Get a much better situation, much better chance. And the puck possession one, that just makes sense as well. I mean, if you're going to have more puck possession, you're going to have more goals. So interesting.
hmm
Analytics in basketball. It's profoundly changed basketball by shifting decision making from intuition, which is what you and I talked about. We may be losing too much of the intuition part of it, to
Yeah.
data driven insights, influencing everything from shot selection and defensive strategies to player development and scouting. Teams now use sophisticated data analysis to design winning strategies and to avoid player injuries and scout talent more effectively. In terms of shifting shot selection, analytics has shown teams score more points by taking more 3-point shots. This has led to a significant increase in 3-point attempts in the NBA. And you can see the greatest 3-point shooter ever right there in Steph Curry. Analyzing opponents, teams analyze opponents' tendencies, including defensive collapses, to design counter strategies against them on the court. And then analytics also helps teams optimize their place and spacing on the court and maximize scoring opportunities and minimizing defensive breakdowns. So, overall thoughts about what analytics has done to basketball?
I think maybe I'm too quick to criticize it. I think there's probably a lot of positives. Just because I think there's too many threes doesn't mean that parts of the game haven't improved. They sure have. There's no surprise that the scoring is up. Um,
Well, we
I'd
know
like
the players are better shooters. So,
I'd like to see more defense. I'd like
yeah.
to see harder rebounding.
Mm-hmm.
And but when you're going to get ISO and throwing up threes, there's not much rebounding to be had, and a lot of times a rebound on a three bounces way further out. So the technique on the rebounding isn't as important because it's more of a.
What if they came up with a 3-point number cap so you can only take 30, let's say, in a game? Do you think that would
I would
work?
love to see them try some different things. Have every court have a different 3-point line distance.
Mm-hmm.
Like baseball has different wall distances.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe have caps on how many 3-pointers you can do. Maybe have the 3-point line go all the way out to the benches instead of letting that go along the sideline there.
Mm-hmm. Actually, the European 3-point line does that. It
Yeah.
doesn't have, there's no corner three in the European 3-pointer. So the corner three is the easiest shot of all the 3-pointers by far because it's the shortest and the easiest to hit. I think they should try it. They should try to cap the number. I don't know what the number would be, but they should try it and see if it improves the flow of the game. And if you get to see a little bit more eye-pleasing basketball, which is what we all want. We want to see the NBA get back to the glory days. So looking at some other things, monitoring player performance, wearable technology, sleep monitors, saliva samples, which track player fatigue and predict performance. Teams can use data to determine when players need rest or find ways to avoid obvious injuries. And then analyzing player movements, injury patterns, fatigue levels all allow teams to implement preventative measures. So I think some of these things are good. I don't see any reason why teams shouldn't be doing this. I mean, their players are their investment. In
Yeah.
some cases, they're investing 30, 40, 50 million a year in these players. So they should be doing these things if they're going to be a responsible organization. Any thoughts?
Well, I think these are complicated issues. I think that obviously load management has unintended consequences. It has positives and negatives. It gets players ready for not breaking down going into the playoffs. So you have a more exciting playoffs in theory.
Mm-hmm.
Preventing injury, I think that the jury's out on the data there. But in theory, you're going to get hurt less if you're in less action.
Mm-hmm.
But and
Oh, I
then the
agree.
stuff they can do for the health of the players is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I think these are all really good things. I think the 3-pointer really is pretty much the only thing I have a complaint with right now. It's just too many, and they got to find a way to curb it somehow. But overall, this has been, on balance, a pretty good thing for the game, I think. Analytics. They have data-driven talent evaluation, which really helps. They have predicting of future performance that's happening in every sport now. They have these complicated models that can show, what performance is going to be in the future. And then identifying undervalued players in scouting has become a really big deal in terms of the scouting process. So all these things are now being driven by analytics in basketball. Let's look at soccer. You had that great conversation today with your Danish neighbor about soccer and how analytics are changing things in the sport. See the great logo there on the bottom left, which is FIFA 26. That's the World Cup that's going to be held in United States, Canada, and Mexico, in all of North America. It's going to be pretty cool. Data analytics are significantly impacting professional soccer by providing insights for improving player performance, optimizing training and recovery, enhancing game strategies, informing recruitment decisions. Teams are using analytics to identify injury risk, performance training plans, and adjust tactics based on real-time data during games. So any thoughts about what analytics can do to the world of soccer?
I mean, the Europeans are fascinated by it because they watched American analytics and they brought it into their sport, and it definitely changed the beautiful game. But I think it's pretty cool. I don't think they're overdoing it yet, so hopefully they'll keep that balance with the training plans and load management and things like that. Different
What's
tactics.
interesting about Moneyball is you didn't have to be a baseball fan to find that movie really interesting and to think about what could that mean for my sport. So you could be in soccer and watch Moneyball and
Lacrosse.
think,
Yeah.
anything. And think to myself, what could I do with data to try to improve my team, give myself an edge if I'm a middling Premier League team or something. So it's pretty cool. It's exciting to think about what's going to happen in these sports. So here's an interesting thing around performance evaluation. Data analytics will help clubs evaluate individual player performance based on various metrics like distance covered, shots on target, tackles. This information is really crucial for identifying strengths and weaknesses of players and making informed decisions on player development, recruitment, and lineups. And then, of course, just like basketball and all the other sports, they're trying to find ways to prevent injuries as much as possible. And they're looking at load management and workload management and movement patterns, psychological data. Clubs can identify potential injury risks and implement preventative measures. You see a great logo there of La Liga and MLS, which are the Spanish and American leagues.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on this?
Just very cool to watch this very popular world sport bring in sort of American analytics that they're putting their own spin on. And it'll be interesting to see how it impacts that sport with the injury prevention and their ability to optimize performance.
What's amazing is we have this World Cup coming in next year. I didn't realize 4 years had passed already. Next year we got the World Cup coming. That's going to be really fun to watch. And I will be interested to watch to see how analytics plays a role in that tournament, because obviously it will. And all the countries that are there are going to try to find ways to have a little bit of an edge. So here is some other items that are being used for analytics: real-time insights. So during games, analytics can provide real-time data on player performance, opponent behavior, game flow, allowing coaches to make informed decisions and adjustments in the heat of the moment or even at halftime. And then optimizing tactical choices. Analytics can help to develop and determine the best formation, style of play, player substitutions, and maximize teams' chances of success against specific opponents. And you see a great logo there on the right of a league that we used to love, Bundesliga in Germany, and then the Premier League in England. But what about this kind of during game, in game type use of analytics for soccer?
Well, I think they're just getting the hang of it. There's fewer substitutions in soccer than in many other sports, so there's less ability to make analytics type adjustments, but I still think there are some, and so it'll show over time a positive benefit, I think.
I agree. This is going to be fun to watch to see this develop. I feel like this sport is the furthest behind the others in implementing, but I think they're going to catch up pretty quickly. I mean, soccer is so huge, or football as they call it, and it's such huge, big industry and big sport now that they will figure it out. This is such a huge business for them. So that'll be fun to watch. Data analytics gets the gold medal at the Paris 2024 Olympics. I thought that was a really funny headline. And essentially what they're saying here is that this was the first Olympics where data analytics really took over. Decision making, injury prevention, scouting, deciding which individual was going to be in which event, what lineups they were going to set. All those things were in play in 2024 at the Paris Olympics. And analytics was a big part of it. So you can see statistical analysis played a huge role in almost every asset of this actual games. Cyclists use GPS sensors attached to the bicycles to collect and analyze data that provides keen insights into the race that's ongoing. Historically, this information has been used to judge scoring and give reviewers more engaging facts about the games. So using sensors in timekeeping isn't necessarily an innovative process. It is used in clothing. Wearable sensor technology was piloted in the 2020 Tokyo Games, but fully rolled out during the Paris Games. So you now have wearable sensors that are soft and flexible enough to weave into clothing. And they were used in almost every one of the events. Just pretty
That's
amazing.
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So if you have one event one day, you can get lots of really good data off of those wearable sensors for the next day when you have another event that you're going to be doing. So I really see this wearable technology as becoming bigger and bigger, especially in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Great idea. In more complex sports, judging involves a keen eye and expertise that even the best trained judges can sometimes not get right. This is where machine learning and artificial intelligence are making a transformation impact, reaching even the judges' table at the Olympics. It's really interesting to think that we may be in a situation where you take the judges out of more and more calls in the future. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think the sky's the limit on AI. Machine learning is becoming more useful. It's kind of cool. They're talking about in the NFL having the line be drawn by a computer for first downs. I think that AI, we're only scratching the surface on what we can even imagine it could be used for.
I agree. I agree. Absolutely. This is just getting started, as we should say. The Olympics will get more and more technical in every way. So looking ahead, the integration of data analytics and AI in judging is expected to become even more sophisticated. Predictive models could potentially account for human factors like fatigue, or using biometric data for judges and athletes to refine their scoring systems further. So you may have a fencer or a judo guy or something else where their performance can go up from one day to the next based on analytics they saw from the day before. So this is really an evolution in sports performance.
Definitely. I think it's cool. Like, I've done some fencing, and it's pretty cool to think about all that sensor technology, but being able to study the athletes as they're performing in whatever sport they're in is pretty cool idea.
Right. And if you have the final the next day, you can actually potentially make some adjustments
You
based on
can
the
turn
data.
it around into making adjustments, yeah, and strategies.
Yeah, and you do film study and you have that data to lean on. So I think it's a really cool idea. This is probably going to be a net benefit, I think, in performance. All right, well, we have reached our subscriber challenge of the evening, guys. And here's the question Rob and I are going to answer, but we want you to drop us a comment down below and tell us. The question is, has analytics made sports more or less entertaining? What do you guys think? Drop us a comment on what you think. Or is it maybe a mixed bag, potentially? So, Robbie, what do you think?
Slightly mixed bag. Overall, much better in most sports most of the time. I think there are instances where some sports, it took away a little bit of the intrigue and hand wringing that was going into the coaching decisions, or it took away a little bit of something from the outcome. But for the most part, I think it's mostly improved almost every sport.
I agree with you. I think that it, on balance, has made things more entertaining, not less. I think people are jumping higher, they're running faster, they're hitting more home runs, they're dunking more, they're hitting more three pointers. Our scores are going up in the NFL and in almost every sport, and it's because player performance is getting better, and it's getting better because it's being supported by data and better nutrition, better training. And all those things are leaning on the support of analytics. So I think overall, on balance, analytics is good. There are a couple of sports that some of the rules need to be tweaked because it is making them somewhat unwatchable. And one of them is NBA basketball, like we talked about. I think the three-pointer has to be curbed somehow. And I think that in football, we may want to look at limiting how many 4th and 1s you can go for, as an example. So there might be some small tweaks around the edges. I was happy baseball got rid of the shift. There are some things I think each league needs to look at to try to make the game more visually pleasing for the customer who's paying a lot of money to see these sports. But overall, on balance, I would say positive and more entertaining. So I'm with Robbie on that one.
Same.
So drop us a comment.
Yeah, we'd love to know what you think, honestly. This is an issue that's sort of newly arriving as we're analyzing the analytics, which is funny.
As analyzing analytics. So
Yeah, so
this was a great topic, a great article. I'm really glad we took it on, Robbie. And it's something I know is on a lot of people's mind. Is analytics going too far? We know that it's here to stay. We know that people are going to continue to use it more and more. AI is here to stay, and we have to deal with it. But the question is, where do you need to push back on it? And that's what we got to figure out as sports fans.
right. Yeah, please drop us a comment, not just whether you think it's made it better or worse, but maybe we didn't take a look at a sport where it's impacting in a positive or negative way. Any concerns that people can think of out there that lead us to having a better discussion on this, and let us know any comments on the overall information. So
And watch the movie that kind of started this whole ball rolling, MoneyBall. It's a really entertaining movie. You'll like it. And as Rob said, drop us a comment. We want to hear from you on what you think of analytics in sports. Is it too much, or do we have the right balance? And I also want to call out and thank Jersey Mike's, our sponsor for tonight. Thank you so much. We love the sandwiches. Rob and I were there the other day and split a steak and cheese, his favorite sandwich. We had a great time, and always have a good time there. And
there was a sub above.
And we really appreciate you guys joining us tonight to talk about analytics in sports, really important topic. And hope you guys will like this video, subscribe to the channel, bring a friend to the channel. We just hit 13K subscribers, if you can believe it. We are just cranking as a channel right now, so we're really happy. Everything you guys have done for us as viewers and subscribers, we appreciate it.
Yeah, we're having a good time. We're having fun, and we're glad a lot of you are along for the ride. And check in with us. Give us some thoughts out there.
Absolutely. Well, we have great stuff coming your way, guys, and we will see you guys next time on the Sports Guys. Have a great night.
Yeah.